Hi, my name's Aidan, and I've spent a little over a year living and working in Japan. However, I didn't really have a plan. First of all, this isn't a guide on how to move to Japan. This is literally just how I did it. In 2023, I'd spent almost 2 years applying for a job in the Royal Air Force, which, if you don't know, it's kind of like the British military air force. And yes, that's actually how long the application process was for the job I was applying for, 2 years. In March of 2023, I got hit with some harsh news or some tough news that I hadn't been accepted. I did learn and grow a lot in those 2 years, but at the time especially, it felt like I'd wasted the last 2 years of my life. Obviously, I was in my young 20s, so those are supposed to be some of the best years of my life, so it hit pretty hard. I guess I was a bit down, understandably, and decided I needed to do something for me. I needed like a trip somewhere or something to clear my head and decide what I wanted to do next. So, obviously, as you can imagine, that ties quite well into how I ended up in Japan. Japan was always a country that had interested me since my early teenage years. I don't know exactly what it was. I like the safety and politeness, the food, of course, the organization and convenience of the country. Just always seemed like a good place to visit, so I'd always been really high on my bucket list. So, originally, I started researching the possibility of a 2, maybe 3 week holiday in Japan, but then I realized all the places I wanted to go, things I wanted to see and do. Quickly, the price was adding up, and I soon realized this trip that I'd planned was going to be super expensive. Also, at the same time, my mum was doing some research of her own into Japan, sort of helping me, I guess. And she found something called a working holiday visa. The Japanese working holiday visa is a visa that lets young people stay in Japan for 1 year to work and travel. You see, now at the same time, I'd also been exploring other options, going to Southeast Asia, maybe having a year in Canada or Australia. But the second I found out about the Japanese working holiday visa, everything else just went like straight out the window. Yeah, I was determined that this is definitely what I was going to do. I began to research and ended up finding a company called Bunak, which I believe has changed its name since then and is now called Genza. What this company offered was help with my visa, sort of like checking my paperwork, my eligibility, stuff like that. Picking me up from the airport in Tokyo, finding me a share house, so a place to stay in Tokyo, helping me set up vital things for daily life, like registering at City Hall, phone SIM card, setting up a bank account, all that sort of stuff. And they also provide you with job support. So they sort of help and check and translate our CVs, our resumes into Japanese. They show us job websites, good places to find jobs, the type of jobs we should be probably looking for. And if you wanted to, I didn't actually do it, but you can do practice interviews because obviously job interviews in Japan are quite different to job interviews in the West, like I'm used to, like in the UK. All of this was a tiny bit expensive. I think at the time I spent about £1,000. But looking at the website now, it seems to be a bit more, maybe around 1,200, 1,300. But in hindsight, it was totally worth it for the amount of stress that I avoided. Needless to say, I had to write up my visa application several times because I kept filling everything out wrong. And I thought it'd be near impossible to open a Japanese bank account and stuff like that by myself unless I spoke native level Japanese without the being annoying with Google Translate and then being like, oh, it's another gaijin here to ruin my day. Anyway, after finding the Japanese working holiday visa, I literally signed up the same day for the Bunak, the company that was going to help me get this visa. Same day. For the Japanese working holiday visa, there's a couple key requirements. You need to be between age 18 and 30. You need to be from one of these countries that I'll put on the screen, meaning yes, if you're from USA, you can't apply for the working holiday visa. You need proof of funds. Basically, I think I needed a minimum of £2,500 in my savings. I think just if you get in trouble there, so you have enough money to get back home, basically, from anywhere in the world. No criminal record, a valid passport, and a letter basically outlining what your intentions are in Japan, what you want to do. It was something small, like I plan to visit here, I want to try this food, I want to work here. Just something simple, but showing you've actually thought about it and done a bit of research, just showing that you actually care. So I wrote my letter. I wrote quite a big letter. I remember when I took it to the immigration centre in London, the woman just quickly scanned through it and was like, yeah, that's fine. I don't actually think she read it, but it's something you just have to do. So after I wrote my letter, I filled out my visa form, took my passport, headed down to the Japanese embassy in London. This was about June time of 2023. I had to go all the way to London to apply, and then a week later I had to go all the way back to London to pick up my visa because they don't post it, which was especially annoying because trains are quite expensive in the UK, and it would be especially annoying if it got declined because you'd have to go all the way back to pick up your passport and have the frustration of your visa being declined. Also, to book an appointment for the Japanese embassy, at least in my case, was a little bit troublesome. I'm not sure if that's the same for all countries, at least in the UK, it was a little bit. I remember for the Japanese embassy in the UK, they release time slots at the start of each week. I think it's Monday at midnight, and it's like getting concert tickets or something like that. You have to quickly book a slot before they're fully booked for that week, otherwise you have to wait for next week's one. Luckily I did get a slot, went down to London, handed in my paperwork, and a week later I collected my passport with my Japanese working holiday visa in. Once you get the visa, you have 1 year to enter the country, at which point you get a stamp in your passport stating the date that you entered and the date when your visa will expire. I ended up choosing November as the month I would fly out to Japan. It just gave me a couple more months to save some money, try learn a bit of the language, and say bye to my friends and family. On the 23rd of November, I took my one-way flight from Manchester Airport in the UK to Narita Airport, Tokyo, Japan. I didn't really know what to expect. I didn't really even have a plan. I just had somewhere to stay in Tokyo for the first month, and I had the help of Bunak to get me set up with things like setting up a bank account, registering City Hall, stuff like that. When I arrived in Japan and got to immigration, I had to fill out an immigration form, which was obviously a little bit more complicated than the form you'd fill out if you were just a tourist entering the country. I remember I filled it out wrong the first time. It's a recurring theme. I also filled out my visa application wrong, but we got there in the end. So I had to redo it, but there were some people to help, so that's fine. Once I had my immigration form, I took it to the counter, and the immigration officer, checked through it, saw the visa in my passport, checked all the paperwork was right, and he stamped my passport or my visa, gave me my resident card, which I actually still have somewhere. I'll try to find it. There you go. That's me. Luckily, once I got through immigration and picked up my suitcase, there was a sweet old Japanese lady waiting to pick me up. I'm a bit annoyed because I've forgotten her name, but it was a long time ago and I didn't see her after this day. She was part of the company that helped with my visa and stuff like that. I guess some people might struggle finding or getting to the share house from the airport, figuring out maybe train tickets and stuff like that. I think I would have been fine, but still I appreciated it. Anyway, she had some train tickets ready for me and she was super friendly. She was asking where I'm from. Am I nervous? Do I know anything about Japanese culture, or do I know any Japanese? What's my plan? It's just quite chatty. It's quite a nice welcome to the country. After about an hour on the train, we arrived in Kiba, which is a neighborhood in the eastern Koto ward of Tokyo, which would be my home for the next year. Once we got there, she walked me to my share house, gave me my key, showed me my room. It was super late at this time. It was almost midnight, or it might have been midnight. So I didn't really have a chance to meet anyone in my share house. I remember I did a super quick unpack of like the essentials, like my toiletries, stuff like that. I lay down in bed, but because of the time difference between UK and Japan, and the fact that I actually slept for almost the entire flight to Tokyo, I was just wide awake. I couldn't sleep. Also, I was absolutely like starving, because it would have been like lunchtime or breakfast back at home. I just arrived a few hours prior, and it was well into the early hours of the morning, so I hadn't had a chance to set up, like a SIM card, and didn't think to set myself up on an eSIM, which would have been clever in hindsight. So I didn't have any data or Wi-Fi connection if I left my share house. Obviously, I didn't know the area because I've only just arrived. However, on the walk from the station to my share house, I did notice there was a 7-Eleven super close to my share house. So I took the tiny bit of cash that I'd converted into yen whilst I was in the UK and went to go get a snack. It does sound stupid, but I think the first time going to a Japanese convenience store is actually quite a big experience for lots of tourists. And I can say it didn't disappoint. I think I got an onigiri, maybe some iced coffee, and I got something else, I can't remember. And I just went for a late night walk around my new neighborhood. I remember it was super peaceful, and I doubt anyone listening knows Kiba. It's not, lots of my Japanese friends who were born and raised in Tokyo don't know Kiba. It's not what you would imagine. If I told you to picture classic Tokyo, you'd probably think of somewhere like Shibuya or Shinjuku, somewhere like that. And to be honest, it was kind of a good thing. It was quite residential. It was actually quite quiet. Kiba's also really close to the Tokyo Bay, like the coast. So there's lots of canals and waterways and rivers. And as someone who's spent over 15 years in a coastal town in the UK, I've noticed how much I value living near some like body of water, whether it's coastline itself or rivers. Needless to say, it wasn't what I pictured, but I was happy. Over the next few weeks, I had to figure out how to sort of survive and thrive in a country where I didn't really know the language, and at the time didn't really know the culture too well. I had to get set up with everything, bank, job, paperwork, all of that stuff. And honestly, in some ways that was harder than I expected. But I think that might be one for another day. So yeah, that's how I went from not getting a job I really wanted, doing a bit of research, and then a couple months later moving out to Japan. As I said at the start, it's not a guide. It's literally just how I did it. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer.